Okay. Namaste. We have fewer audience members in the audience. But anyway, this is now we are going through. I'm going to lay down the plan. It's not going to be like prime minister wise, because in 20 years that span from 1980 to 19 to 2004, so many of the prime ministers changed. Some were only there for 7 months, some were there for 1.5 years. They were fillers. So instead of talking about each one of them, what happened, what mistakes they did, basically we are focusing on the mistakes, why everybody made the same mistakes over and over again. And we are linking it to Mahatma Gandhi. So now this is a short journey in which we will see how the democracy becomes a dictatorship, and that continues all through the Congress regimes. And in this, we will see that once dictatorship comes and the democracy crumbles down, then you can make any law and there is no recourse to it. So that is one point. The second point is that they can do whatever they want to do with the exchequer. And also, if the party itself is corrupt at the top, they can sell secrets, internal secrets, to foreign enemy countries. So it comes under 4-5 headings. And this heading is how it dwindles down to dictatorship. Then the next one will be the rise of separatism. I will touch a little bit. Then all the scams and the corruption. And then separatism is also linked with terrorism. And then the main point is Hindus are in the crunch. So that will be summary of all these 70 years of Congress regimes, what they did. They squeezed Hindus in whatever way possible they could, and they did. So then the summary part will be a way forward. But before that, I will link Gandhi's speeches, and that will reveal his legacy. Because part of the book is the legacy, that we are not getting rid of the ghost. We haven't stopped fully moving away from his footprints. Having said that, Hindus face unimaginable crackdown. And that crackdown started just after Gandhi's death. Nobody reported except Washington Post. There was total blackout of that news. And many people in India still don't know that so many Brahmins were killed in 2.5 days. Then in 1966, the movement started by sadhus that the constitution guarantees to ban the cow slaughter. Why it has not been banned? So the idea was that some 3,000 sadhus, they gathered and they started moving towards the Parliament House. And now that is where they were supposed to do the sit-in strike. To stop that protest that they don't reach, they barricaded, but they continued. Now, these sadhus, they only carry a small stick, and this is called a staff, and this is to find the way, actually. But they said that there were weapons on them and they were danger to the society and law and order. So immediately the police came upon them, and they say about 500 people died. One of them who survived, he cursed Indira Gandhi that you and your dynasty will die of brutal killing because you brutally killed innocent sadhus. So, how far that came true, we know. So draconian laws and secularism that is applying only to Hindus. So events leading to the enforcement of emergency. After 71 war, people were just happy and everybody was like shouting Indira Gandhi as icon of Shakti. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he said that she is Ma Durga, and there was a lot of euphoria. Then came the election of 1975. In these 4 years, euphoria did not last too long because the economy was fledgling and corruption was rampant and infrastructure was very poor. The inflation was on the rise and people were feeling the crunch. The first people who started making protests, they were the students in a few universities. They did the strike, and that became kind of a immediately like spreading like a wildfire. Amidst all those events came the month of May, when the election was taking place, and Raj Narayan was on the opposite party, and she was fighting against him, in which Mrs. Gandhi lost. And since she lost, she wouldn't give up. She contested, and the decision of the Allahabad High Court was that it is valid and he has won. But they gave her 2 months of temporary membership as MP to be present in the Lok Sabha. And this was a extremely dangerous step because she was capable of being rude and being a crook. So she came out with the idea. She suspended the Lok Sabha proceedings, and not only she challenged the Allahabad decision, High Court, she met with some of the people in her close cabinet, and they all decided that there should be one party rule. You can bring out the emergency and abrogate the constitution. And Fakhruddin was under her as a minister, and now he was a president. I mean, what could be more favorable than this situation? So at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, she went to see him, and he signed. At 5 o'clock, Radio News announced that there is an emergency, Maintenance of Internal Security Act. In short, it was called MISA. Those of the people who were in the 70s as young children, they might know what it was. All the rights were abrogated, freedom of speech. And now the question was this maintenance of act necessary? Why was it necessary the constitution be abrogated? And she made another, amendment very quickly, Representation of People Act. The whole parliament was not part of it, only the close group. I don't understand how could that act be valid even. So that was to validate Mrs. Gandhi's election, and that was to also make sure that Lok Sabha election is extended up to 6 years instead of 4 years and 5 years. And in other words, they can continue ruling uh, up to eternity, as long as they are alive and they are next. You see, this kind of thing is not a democracy, because a person is ruling with the help of the party. It's not the party is in power and the head of the president of the party or elected person of the party is prime minister working within the constitution. Here it is the person is ruling. And if I did not mention before, when Nehru became the prime minister, his remark was, I am the last Englishman to rule the country. I am the last Englishman to rule over India. So you can understand that he is putting himself apart from the people uh, who they are supposed to be representative. Of course, he was appointed, but still to declare in such a snobbish way that he does not have Indian roots. So that is where the most of the problem started, and with Gandhi's blessings. The second thing she did was that as soon as she announced at 5 o'clock, after the radio announcement, in the newspaper press district, there was a district, a few districts, there was an electricity blackout. So, complete shutdown of newspaper. And then overnight, she was arresting everybody. Within overnight, she arrested about 40,000 Hindu leaders. Jayaprakash Narayan, Gayatri Devi, Maharani Gayatri Devi, and all the stalwarts who she thought were dangerous to her. So Bajpayee was there, even Arun Jaitley was there, all of those people. Morarji was there. So they were rounded up. And now there is a very interesting post I have mentioned in the book, the whole interview. Dr. Subramaniam Swami, he was also there. He was MP at that time. So he learned like a whisper, rumor that something is going to happen today. And he went into hiding. And then eventually he left the country. So when he left the country and he found that in the foreign countries, nobody knew that something is happening. People thought that this is just a way of controlling. What she's doing is she's controlling internal disorder. And every government does that. They never knew the extent of it. So in this span of emergency, there were so many amendments, one after other, because there is no opposition. And then the Article 30. This is the most contentious article that she passed at that time. It was in the form of an amendment. Now, this part is important because this has made India the colony of Muslims. You see, minorities are Muslims. Basically, it was meant for Muslims, but they use the word regional and religious minorities. This is the first time now religion has come as a minority card. Otherwise, it was just economically, culturally deprived people. So according to this article, the grants were to be given to all the religious and regionally different institutions, educational, The teachers' salaries will be paid by the government. Imams will be paid by the government. I don't understand how they come under this thing. Madrasas will be given a grant to promote their culture. And actually, she said she's making the playing field level. That is the word she used. And so, walking on the footprints of Hitler and acting like Stalin in a short half an hour, it is difficult to build a parallel. But in the book, I have mentioned word by word what happened in 1933. She followed word by word those uh, declarations. You see, here is my 20-point plan. His was probably 15-point plan. And like this, abrogation of the parliament and one party rule. All of these were Hitler's footprints. And she acted ruthlessly like Stalin. So all the opposition leaders, even mere suspicion, RSS, they were behind bars. So the 20 points were mainly about the giving more rights to the Muslims, guaranteeing power to the minimum wage to the poor people, workers, recognizing some more unions, and there was some more, she called it economic rejuvenation. And a new word was coined. Instead of saying it is a dictatorship, one party rule, she said this is a disciplined democracy. So, what is how it comes down to disciplined minority democracy or undisciplined? We don't understand. But this was the word coined. So, who were the architects of the emergency? So, advisors. The major advisor of Sanjay Gandhi. He was a very foolish person and very headstrong and full of himself. And she relied on him. Swaran Singh was there. Jagmohan was there, who later became the governor of Jammu Kashmir. P.N. Huxer, Siddharth Shankar Ray, D.K. Barua, Rajnikant Patel, B.C. Shukla, the Information and Broadcasting Minister, Om Mehta, R.K. Dhawan, Bansi Lal. And there is a book about these, the architects of emergency, the 10 wizards, something like that. And new titles and epithets were coined for Indira Gandhi. One of them was India is Indra and Indra is India. To this, Jayaprakash Narayan said that India is an eternal thing. It has an eternity, whereas many Indras will come and go. So then there was this one, Indra teri subha ki jai, teri sham ki jai, tere kaam ki jai, tere naam ki jai. I mean, this was like doing arti, prayer every day. So this was the extent of sycophancy. And not leaving her son out of the adulation, Barua made a comment and he said, Sanjay Gandhi is such a powerful brain, a philosopher, a visionary. He is Vivekanand, Shankaracharya, and Akbar, all rolled in one. I mean, when you really go through these words in a discussion or reading, you are simply amazed. How can people make such remarks about idiots? But then we should not be surprised because we still are, most of these secularists or Congressite, What are they doing? They are acting like dogs, wagging their tails behind a donkey. So there is nothing to do with caliber anymore at all. Uh, so you can understand what is their idea of a philosopher. Rajiv Gandhi was a philosopher, and Rahul Gandhi is the biggest one. So that is their definition of a philosopher. So there were human rights violation, right, left, center. Nobody could say anything. There was forced sterilization only of Hindus and young youth. And I visited a village in 1975. I went there to India, and the villagers were saying that at night we all the men, they hide inside their haystack house, hmm, to avoid the sterilization, because the rumor came that the GP is coming. So due process of law and other rights, property rights, guaranteed by the Constitution, gone with the wind, judicial recourse denied. Now here, that means if you have any grievance, you cannot go to the court. So those people who were languishing in the prisons, they had no way of appealing or getting their case heard or even knowing what the charges are. So danger to the country, internal security, that is a very vague charge. She extended the duration of Lok Sabha. Opposition was crushed, massive corruption. Massive corruption has to be there because they are buying the newspapers. So it is no longer independence of press. If you are having a license for the newspaper, you will only operate under certain condition. So the license is being charged. So the press was threatened with cancellation of license. And this is interesting thing. I only came to know when I was researching for the book. Singers and actors and poets, anyone considered as a dissenting voice, were imprisoned. So Kishore Kumar was asked, all of these people were asked. Kishore Kumar, Devanand, from top of my head, Dilip Kumar, and some of those people, they were asked to do the advertisement for 20 points plan. And they refused. So they fell out of favor. Kishore Kumar had a contract with the All India Radio for singing, and he was fired. And some of them who wrote poetry, like Mazrur Sultanpuri, he was actually imprisoned because not only he wrote the poems like that, but he published them. And poetry is usually, circulated the 4 lines, 5 lines. You have seen how social media works in the same way. The Urdu poetry is very popular in northern India, Hyderabad, those places. So even those people were not spared. She wanted total control and cooperation from everybody. Communications and from acting, from drama, from educational, this thing. So then in 1975, in the month of June, I went there. I was still in the government service. And my father said, that, "What are you doing here?" I had my 2 children with me. And I used to go every 2 years for exposure to culture and immersion in the culture for the kids, and also meeting the family. So my father point blank said that, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What? This is my usual visit." Because in America, we did not know that there is a operation. We are under visa. and there is an emergency. So he says, now, how long are you going to stay? Say, I plan to stay 6 weeks. He says, I think you should change your plans and go back. Such was the extent of fear in his eyes. And so I say, why? He says, if the government came to know that you are here and you are on unpaid leave, you will be drafted back, you will be called to service. And then once you join the service, you will not be allowed to go back. Because at that time, nobody knew how long the emergency would be and who would be the next bosses. So immediately you should get out of this country, or you will be staying here almost forever at the cost of children's education. So somehow or other, I remained underground and not meeting anybody. A few villages here and there, and I came back. And then I thought that the best thing is to resign because it's not going to work. Even they can ask me from here to come back. So, cutting it short, getting back to the main events, Indira Gandhi was toppled. There was so much of sentiment and international pressure. That was only because of Subramanian Swamy, who did he went to England and to United States, different places, and he stirred up the people. And that is when there was international pressure. And also the failure of the emergency, you see. At some point, people come out with their own weapons to attack. At that point, Indira Gandhi was arrested and Morarji Desai became the prime minister. At that time, it was not BJP, it was called Jan Sangh. Jan Sangh or Janta Dal, yes. So Morarji Desai was another extremely, he was the governor of Gujarat or Maharashtra, but he was extremely a foolish person. Foolish in the sense that if you don't have a political savvy and you do not have vision and you do not know how to administer, you see, politician is one thing, administration is quite another. So he followed Gandhi, and he was such a foolish person, idiotic person, that he believed that Pakistan and India, they are brothers to each other. And in one of those conversations, he was talking on the telephone to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and he said, we have an agency, and that agency is a secret research analysis, and we have mapped your entire country district by district. When I read this thing, I couldn't believe it, that the Prime Minister of sharing this information 5 years after the war, major war. You see, where is the common sense? Some sense. So, as a result, within 3-4 days, 800 raw officials of raw spies in Pakistan, they were killed and arrested. So this is the loudmouth guy. And Raw was completely broken up, you see. And this is somehow people do not learn the lesson that if the Muslims have point blank declared, and this is the point I want to make, continue to make for the whatever time, that Muslims themselves say we cannot coexist. If they say we cannot coexist, why are you making extra effort, offering this carrot, offering this mango, offering all the natural resources, and bending over backward right to the ground to appease them that they will be Indians? They will not be Indians. They have never been Indians. Right from the vice president, the president, Muslim president, down to the election commissioner who recently retired, they are not your friends. And otherwise also, in international field, two sovereign countries, they can be allies for a temporary period of time. They cannot be friends. You see, everybody looks after the country's interest. These guys were totally, morons, and people started calling Morarji Desai's government as Congress Party B grade. So in the next election, they were defeated. Obviously, they did not deliver anything and did not remove any economic problems, did nothing except that they made a commission, Shah Commission, to investigate the unconstitutional acts of Mrs. Gandhi. Big deal. And Indira Gandhi came, staged a interesting kind of coup. What happened? She was in prison during Morarji Desai's time, and a plane with the two persons only inside. And those two persons hijacked the plane. Their condition was that it will not be allowed to land in India till Mrs. Gandhi is released. You see? So obviously some brainy person, some crook thought of this way. So she was released. But then the election was due, and in 1980 election, they were defeated for very good reasons. Shah Commission was folded. Mrs. Gandhi said that this is not even recognized. And now when she is back to power, phase two, there are new challenges. She expanded the rights of Muslim Waqf Board, as I said, salaries of imams, teachers, grants were given to all religious institutions except Hindus. Hindu institutions got conditional grants. Now, this is interesting. Whereas other people get under religious category grants, and Hindus are given grants only if they prove they are secular. Please consider this point very carefully. What is the mindset of the government? Even today, it's not that a pro-Hindu government has come, the whole system has changed. It still has somewhere a lingering allegiance to Gandhi and Nehru. So, because in 77 or sometimes in 82, I was invited by some DAV college and DAV school also to make a presentation on Indian history. And I said that, what do you want me to talk about? Ancient Indian history, continuity, antiquity, or you want to talk about Hindu Dharma? And they said, no, Hindu Dharma is not to be talked about because we are secular. We have to maintain our secular image. And absolutely, Hindu word is not to be used. This is Punjab, a small town near Amritsar. So this is the level playing field, what they call. And this thing, by the way, has not, it still continues. It still continues. And temple funds are looted, that everybody knows. Okay. So desperate measures to retain power in the states and the center. Now, this bold move was that in order to have absolute power and forever for the dynasty and Congress, and not only she has to rely on the Muslims, she has also to reduce the influence of Shri Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee in Punjab. So the incompetent advisors, including Jal Singh, who was home minister at that time, he suggested that let us make a division, divide the Sikhs. And they brought Bhindranwale village a new young leader who later came to be known as Bhindranwale. His actual name was something different, but that was the village. So he came in Amritsar, he started sitting, giving lectures, and that is when the terrorism started in Punjab. I would not say that it was completely authored. Terrorism was started by Indira Gandhi or her advisors, but they played the key role. The idea itself that Punjab should be separated, that was floated by ISI of Pakistan and CIA. So in 1973, when we went for morning Gurpurb parade in Manhattan, and naturally we were very proud that Gurpurb is celebrated. As Punjabis, we went. And there were two floats. They were only Americans with blonde hair and blonde beards and chanting from Gurbani and doing that chavar on the Guru Granth Sahib. So actually it started, very few people know that the nexus of this thing was ISIN. So it was tit for tat that you did separated Bangladesh, we will separate. So the plot was theirs. Who carried it out? That was Indira Gandhi with the help of Jal Singh. Jal Singh said that this is the way to, break them and have forever Congress party in Punjab. See, just to win the election, 19,000 Hindus were killed there. And consequently, later on, 3,006 were killed. Victim of this particular desire that Punjab should always have Congress rule. And this brought an atmosphere of insecurity. Most people went out from Punjab, those who could, but doctors and CAs and these people cannot leave. Their clientele is mostly local or in the district. So what will they do in Panipat or Delhi or Agra when their clients are here? So those people stayed in Punjab and I witnessed everything. Then the Naxalites entered the whole thing. And I talk about it more in separatism and terrorism. So all these are hostile parties, which communists and the labor unions and the Naxalites with their guerrilla force and the Sikh terrorists. So, plus there were economic issues. So all of these were challenges. The long-term damage to constitutional republic, putting equality above liberty. You see, Benjamin Franklin once said that if you put equality above liberty, we lose both. Because the meritorious people will not have opportunity to excel. In other words, they don't have liberty to excel. Whereas the low-grade brains will get extra opportunities. So if you put equality before liberty, you lose both. But liberty should be first, and then in the framework of that, opportunities should be expanded. So elimination of the prevailing affluent class, all those landlords and the previously rich people, their wings were clipped. And the scholars, they had no academic liberty at all. As I mentioned before, it was tightrope. Book publishing was nationalized, which means only government will uh, publish the books. Previously, it was like, in Punjab, there was university publishers, and there were Atmaram, like that. But now the government did that. And all the crap about the Mughal Empire and this and that, that started in those. And she also changed the name of the republic. It became Secular Socialist Republic, just by a simple act. So socio-political divide happened, terrorism, Punjab, Khalistan fiasco. I haven't concluded that. Foreign nexus. Mrs. Gandhi installed a new leader, Sonia Gandhi's covert actions. Now she is in power because she's living with the prime minister, and with the help of Italian friends, she's moving all the uh, all the treasures from the Nehru Museum, from the archives, and selling them in different places. So Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, everybody probably know, suddenly she decided that Bhindranwale has become too dangerous, and Soviet Union suggested that you better take an action now, because within a week they will take over up to Delhi. So this was their suggestion. And then the long-term effect was Blue Star operation came. They killed the in charge of the operation. Bhindranwale was killed. Many people were killed. And in the short term, she herself was killed. The question is, did Congress party learn anything from 4 decades of bad judgments? Now, this question applies even to the new governments, that have they learned much of lessons from bad judgment? It's one thing to assure economic development. It's quite another to create a cohesive society, or stop the erosion of ancient culture, which was accepted by everybody. So, and what could have been done differently? I would say everything, but just to pinpoint, how many points can you come up with? Um, Except that Gandhi should have been killed. Well, he was killed. So what? He was still alive with more power. So I would appreciate in the next session if somebody could, come out with a few of these suggestions, because some of these suggestions might become suggestions to the current government, and the government to follow. So should we call it like, homework? I'm a teacher, I always try to do that building. So having said that, now you can have questions and answers. And escape. Okay. What did I do? Where did everything go? It always happens. How to expand it? Grid, full
We
screen.
covered a lot of ground today. So I have a
Yeah,
comment and
yeah. Just let me see what I'm doing.
okay, I'll
Why
wait.
it's not coming up full view? Is that coming on? Okay.
Yeah, we are able to see it. Okay.
I'll
I your
do.
last.
Okay. Yes, the question.
Yeah. So the question on, did Congress party learn anything on through all these missteps and um, um, all the setbacks that their leadership had? Um, so my question is, we often hear about, especially when Sanjay Gandhi died, about his secret stash of money in Swiss bank, the code for which was probably in his watch when his plane crashed in 1980, right? So is Congress party really a democratic party where anyone other than dynasty could rise to the leadership, or is it controlled by one family because of the large amount of funds they have, and therefore um, so good talent cannot rise to top anyways, people end up leaving, and it's just one family running the party into ground. So what are your views on that?
It was very clear. In 1942, when Indira Gandhi was married, and her name became, she was converted and her name became something else, Khan. At that time, Nehru went to Gandhi, what should I do now? Because she is going to be the prime minister after me when India gets independent. So the plan was very clear that not only he is going to be the prime minister, but somehow or other we should make believe that Indira Gandhi mm, um, was a Hindu, even though she was married. And Gandhi said, "I'll give a name." Many people say that he was very truthful. I don't know if this is truth or it is what. That okay, I'll give my name and I'll say that Gandhi is also Parsi name. I mean, all this subterfuge. So uh, they, the very idea that Nehru promoted in the Congress party was that Congress party got the transfer of power. Power was transferred not to the Indian people, it was transferred to Nehru as president of the Congress party. So that is what the understanding was. And he remained under that. And most of the time, he gave the openly stated that he is a ruler. The constitution was never put to referendum. And Ambedkar, who said that it should be put, that was the condition of the constitution, that it should be approved by the people. That was, Ambedkar was kicked out for that. So any person who asks for freedom, liberty, liberty was denied. And there was an amendment, the very first amendment in 1952 or 1 actually was freedom of speech. Instead of that, it said restricted freedom of speech. If you read the amendment, it is restricted freedom of speech. What is the restriction? Who decides what is to be restricted and what is not to be restricted? You see, it means there is no freedom. It
Yeah.
is an arbitrary frame that you are kind of, making it up. So that is, it never was a democracy. Now it is a democracy. The election of 2009, yes, when the second UPA government came, the machine was, EVM was messed up, not messed up, manipulated, and only only votes went for Congress. So they won by thundering majority. And that question was raised by Subramanian Swamy as MP. And he said that how can that be? If in a certain constituency, I cast my vote, and obviously my wife is casting a vote for me, how can you say zero for BJP? You see, he says zero is not a possibility. Some relatives will be there, some children will be there, some friend might be there. At least I am there, and my
Yeah.
wife is there.
Yes.
So there are two votes. Zero is not a possibility. So, I mean, it's so much scanning, manipulation of the constitution. Right now, you can say that there is no constitution because whatever is messed up is beyond correction. BJP will never have 3/4 of the states to ratify any amendment, even if they manage 2/3 of the votes in the parliament. So the situation is way beyond the my probably if I were in that kind of power position, I would say that president rule. India does not have a full democracy, and there are too many loose threads, too much of friction, and people are treacherous. They are traitors, openly traitors. So therefore, you be the manager of the president's rule government. What's wrong with that? You see, this is an emergent situation. There is China on one side, Pakistan. They have made a pact. And then there is so much turbulence is going on all over the world. You don't have an ally. If China attacks, Russia will probably remain neutral. Then who will come to our rescue? So therefore, the best bet is right now immediate surgical strike within the country. Anybody who is calling, the country itself as a union of states, this guy, Rahul Gandhi, in England made the statement that India is not a country, it's a union of independent states. You see, like United States of America. Somebody said, you say that, and this will catch. And this became the mantra for that yatra he was doing, that India is a union of states. How dangerous the idea is, as if we don't have enough of fault lines. So there are remedies, but they are very drastic. When you don't take appropriate measures at the right time, then this is what happens. Any other question? No question. Then there is no question.
Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll, call it for today. And next one will be 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.